Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the next episode of Toast to Talk on the Toast Network. If you've been following us, this is our 9th episode today, and we've got some fresh new faces with us along with our regulars in this new format that we've been trying out for the year 2022, which is basically a quiz format. Before we start off, I would like each of our panelists to introduce themselves, and then we'll get into the format. So starting with our regular to set the tone, Vignesh, welcome back.
As all of you know me, I'm Vignesh. I am a Mercedes fan, not a Lewis fanboy. But yeah, I would love every team to win, give a competitive ground, and see the glories of F1 past the soaring skies.
Thanks a lot, Vignesh. And as you viewers would know, he is our encyclopedia of everything F1. So always a great treat listening to you, Vignesh. Next up, we have two new folks. Both of them, by the way, have something common, which I haven't told them yet, but both are brilliant photographers. Right, you should check out their work, and I'll let them talk about their handles so that you can check out their work apart from being avid F1 fans. So let's start off with Swetha.
Okay, hi, this is Swetha, and I'm, as Vivek mentioned, a freelance photographer. Go by Lady Reflections, and I have always been, I am still a Michael Schumacher fan and a Kimi Raikkonen fan. Now that both my favorites are out of the sport, so my heart is always with F1 and literally with all the 20 drivers. So I'm here because I love the sport.
Got it. So all you F1 drivers out there is space for a new fan. You have to figure out how do you fill that in Shweta's life. And moving next, last but not the least, he's, I think, already highlighting who he's a supporter of with his t-shirt. Welcome aboard, Prashanth.
Thank you, Vivek. Thank you. As I said, it's a pleasure to be here. And as my shirt says, and it was just a coincidence, I've always been a Ferrari fan, as far as I can say, like mid-90s, early 90s. I remember reading the news of Senna's death on newspapers, that he died in Imola, and I literally cried as a kid. And from there, my journey took a very different tangent. Yes, in spite of Ferrari not being performing for last few years, there is always a ray of hope which I carry. Just for the competitive sake, I was excessively supporting Max, but this year my loyalty is more shifting towards Ferrari, and I hope they do it really well. I'm pretty excited about this season from Ferrari.
Yep, quite a few Ferrari fans on board today, compared to the previous episode.
Yeah.
But with that, we will move on to the format. As you all are aware, rule number 0 is the points of this quiz are all made up, but the winner does get to walk away with the bragging rights of being called a fanatic. Rule 1, host is free to give bonus points to interesting trivia related to the topic. The host finally gets to decide whatever points he gives to whoever he gives and how many he gives. And rule 2, just to give everyone context, is we're going to put random pictures, and the idea is for you to connect and provide context to what potentially could be the reason why those pictures are. And they will seem extremely random in some cases, but that's just me thinking tangentially and putting some things together. But looking forward to a great conversation today. Our key focus being this is pre-season. We are a month away from going live with the Bahrain Grand Prix on March 20th. And there's been a lot happening. Some of it is the aftermath of 2021, and some of it is the pre-work of 2022. And in that gap of all those exciting things happening, figured this would be the right time to have a conversation and gain some context on what are all things F1. With that, let's move on to our first question for today. Like I said, seemingly random. There's an iPhone 13, 75 Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, Brian Adams, 18 Till I Die. And anyone wants to take a guess on the last one?
That is Life, right?
Soul.
Soul, that's the movie Soul, and the character's name is 22.
Oh, yeah, correct.
Is it related to Ferrari F75?
Yeah, the 75, yes, I can say that that's Ferrari F75. So what's the F175 Ferrari?
It is for the 75th year celebration of Ferrari
Ferrari's
in F1.
inception.
No, so but yeah, that's the right answer in a way. But what for just for our viewers, what is F175?
It's a name of the model number of
It's the
this
model
year's car
number.
of
Yeah,
Ferrari.
that's what I was looking for.
So,
So do you want to take a
okay,
guess?
I understand. F75, the 75 is for F75. Brian Adams 18 till I die is RB18, I believe. This iPhone 13. So 13 is basically this one, AMR 13, right? Or no.
You're a fan of?
Mercedes,
Mercedes.
yeah, W13. And this one is
Soul.
22.
22.
Yeah, 22.
22.
But yeah, you guys are on the right
Alpine,
track.
Alpine 522.
These are the car model numbers for the season of 2022. As all you F1 fans might have realized over the past few weeks, most of the racing cars have been running the showdown or shakedown, showing off their newest livery that we can all be excited about. Some of them have been almost actual models, still keeping their cards close to the chest. Some of them have been digital renderers, but it just sets the tone for the upcoming season. So have you guys been following up on?
Yes. I couldn't see the live session of the Ferrari, but with all my subscriptions of social accounts and other things, yes, I think it was more or less grand one. And I think what Mercedes did that yesterday, right? Pretty exciting news. And already Hamilton has made the first statement that I'm back with full energy. I wanted that break, which of course he deserves it. So it's going to be good.
My one fun fact which I wanted to see was that Williams have named their car as FW44. Is it a tribute to the 44 years in F1 or is it a tribute to Lewis Hamilton?
No, I think they would have given it for Sir Williams, who passed away, right? So there are a subsidiary company of Mercedes, but I think it's more of a respect to him. I did read this in a blog that why they've named FW44, and it's for the inception time, the era they've crossed through.
And also one more thing that this year the Williams CEO has said that they would not have the Senna SS in the car because it was a thing of a past. They have actually redesigned their entire gallery, their art museum to have Senna as an entire session there. But they are going to move forward. They're going to be future focused, and that's why they're removing that Senna SS so that the drivers don't have the view of the past, but they are more to the future and they're focused in developing and coming back into the ranks.
Nice. Actually, I did not know that there was an S in Williams' car. That's very nice to know.
So whenever the drivers actually climb towards the car, they see that S.
Okay.
It's like a very smallish thing.
On the cockpit side, is it?
Yes.
Okay.
Also, like Red Bull actually brought a F1 car, repainted it in its livery and actually threw it out for public. That was their cheeky move to ensure that
it was not the actual car, yeah.
True.
Yeah. No, I mean, any thoughts in terms of, the look and feel of the cars this year compared to the years that you guys have gone by?
The new Ferrari got me really excited. It looks so sleek, so nice. The color paints, the combination, everything is so good. So I'm getting my hopes up about Ferrari this year.
Me too. Actually, the moment I saw the livery of Ferrari, meaning I'm also a huge fan of RCB. They have a black and gold, but they changed it to black and red. So when I saw Sainz and Mr. Leclerc in that jerseys, it looked like as if they're in an RCB jersey. I got confused for a second. So black and red seems to be the theme, and yes, it looks gorgeous. I think even RB's car was very, very nice. Especially the livery was fantastic. I think from a dimension perspective, it's a little bit off, but the liveries are much, much better than what we have seen in the last 3-4 years. More attractive.
More than that, I believe Ferrari has brought this livery in the past. I think so for their 1,000th race celebration or something.
Yeah, they did.
They had
Yes.
brought this livery as a like a publicity stunt.
Teaser. Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
teaser and publicity stunt, and they have brought it now.
Very true.
In that way, I love Ferrari's livery. I also like the concept. Okay, Mercedes have said, okay, enough of the black. We are again shifting back to our
Silver.
alloy livery. It is good because like for 5 years we have seen them racing in that great silver arrow colors, and suddenly you see them in black. And then again bringing that silver arrow, it signifies that Mercedes, who actually brought this livery during the 2013 when they had actually formally brought it to the turbo hybrid era, it shows that okay, the new era of regulations, they are again coming back with a bang. It might be a statement. I am not, it's just a contemplation, but yeah, it might be a statement telling, yeah, we are back and we will show who we are. In that way, I love Mercedes livery. Haas, on the other hand, someone had told me that it looks like a Colgate toothpaste.
Yeah, it looks like a Russian flag also, if you think about it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Haas is like a pure mix of Colgate, Russian flag. Probably it might be because the Russian Federation is not allowed to contest in its flags till December 2022. They said, okay, we won't put the flag, we'll put the colors.
You know where the money is coming from, right, Prashanth?
Yes.
But
The best thing which I liked was the Aston Martin livery. The reason is, if you actually see the livery now, the green with that tinge of yellow adds that beauty to the car. And of course, all of you might know it. The pink is going to Alpine.
I think the least unchanged was probably Red Bull, right?
Yeah.
And about the Mercedes, though this is not about the car, I like what Russell did. He changed the color of his helmet because the car was going silver again, because he thought that combination of the silver and the the orangish red helmet was Schumacher. So out of respect, he changed the color. So I like that. I like that gesture.
Yeah, that's pretty respectful. And I think we've heard about a couple of things and just how much these drivers, no matter how hard they compete, at the end of the day, is super respectful to each other, except maybe two of them. But quick question, like, so you mentioned 75 is obviously 75 years since Ferrari started off in this making F1 cars per se in that factory. Why? What do you think could be the reason for the other numbers? And we kind of spoke about 44. But for example, Red Bull is the previous year was 16 and this year is 18.
Yeah, so basically 16 was mainly because it was the same car from 2020, which they had used in 2021. Hence, they had kept the same number. I think so. It was 16A. That's how they had given their. So since last year was supposed to be 17, so this year they named it 8. Again, 18 years of them in Formula 1.
Correct.
Same goes with Mercedes, 13 years in Formula 1 as a constructor.
Yeah, as a constructor.
As a constructor, because they were an engine supplier in the past with other teams. So that is one thing. AMR 22 is basically Aston Martin giving the 22 years, which is the 2022.
2022, correct.
This one has also has the same 2022 one. The fun fact which I liked was I think so Alpine has its number as 522. Alpine, I was just searching it. It is Alpine A522 is their number. So that is one. You have this one, Alfa Romeo. I have to speak about it. They have such a great numbering system. Anyone knows what was the numbering system? So something of that kind. It was actually 40 something. Last year it was 39, and then it went to 41, and then last year it was 40, and this year it is 42. So they have that. They have the weird. That was mainly because they also had given this explanation stating that their numbers were decided before the regulations were changing. So hence they had to flip the numbers so that the car gets accommodated. And that's how they come back to the 42, which is basic 42 years of them in Formula One.
I think everyone's finally sort of settling down into that direction of number of years on the grid. So it'll be exciting to see as the new players come in.
Yeah.
With that, we'll move on to our next question. But obviously a lot of excitement in terms of the new cars that are lined up for this year. Let's see how they do in the new environment, but they look good for starters. And I think that's enough to get us all excited. Moving to our second, before I move to the second question, I think I'm going to give 10 points obviously to Vignesh for having cracked this. And another 5 points to all of you for all the fun facts that you put through.
Okay.
This one I know because it is Schumacher's all cars on the right.
Oh, wow.
From Benetton to Ferrari to Mercedes, that is Schumacher's car list.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Wow.
That is actually all the cars Schumacher drove through, but I'll give you a hint and say that it's nothing to do with Schumacher, the answer
So
that I'm
it is
looking for.
basically the technical regulations, I believe. So since I can see that 2017 technical regulations chart, the arrow charts, so I believe that earlier it was more focused on the probably on the arrow, and then now we are again shifting it back. That's what you're trying to highlight.
No, actually, you've got the answer right with respect to, I wanted us to talk about technical regulations, right? And it fundamentally boils down to the question of why is Formula One called Formula One?
Yeah. So in terms of technical regulations, I believe that, okay, technical regulations are necessary because in the past, as we have spoken, we have seen teams going crazy with their designs. Anyone knows about that design where they had fitted a very big fan on the back of the car? It was this big during the Senna times. Then they had a car with, I think, so 6 wheels, 2 in the front,
6 wheels I've heard.
Yeah.
4 in behind. And then they had one more car which had a very high wing. It was basically 2 narrow rods going so high, and then you had a very small wing up. So these were what were the humongous changes which they did. Note that, okay, with regulations, we are not trying to curtail the people's creativity. Mercedes brought in creativity in the technical regulations with their dash. We are not trying to curtail it. We are trying to standardize your frame of mind. Because the more standard it will become, the more clearer you are in what you are supposed to make. And it would be more beneficial because now all the teams know how to gain advantage and bad. You have a clear box, you operate within the box. If you go outside that box, you are penalized. So it helps both the teams, the drivers, and Formula One grow.
And that's fundamentally what Formula One is all about, right? The formula is basically sticking to a formula, standardizing the regulations so that all the teams are working under the same constraints, and then using their creativity to what Vignesh has highlighted, depending on the interpretation and how they go about doing that. And hence Formula One over the years has been, at least for me personally, has been exciting because it's 2 parts to it, right? One is the man behind the machine, and hopefully that will become a person behind the machine over the years. And the second part is the machine itself, the amount of engineering that goes into that based on the constraints and rules lined up is where you're seeing that battle. Obviously, sometimes someone gets the upper hand, and that brings in the debate of, is the driver a champion because of him or her as an individual, or is it because of the vehicle? And I think because both those factors play such a big role, that it adds to the mix and the variability of the exciting thing that F1 is, even though if for most critics, it's like, hey, people just going round and round in circles.
I think a lot of the people I talk to, they always feel Formula One is a circle game kind of stuff. I have a slight different interpretation, Vivek, of Formula One. Like, so when I explain it to a lame person about the regulations, I say it's 33% into 3. Okay, the first, as you rightly said, there is a man behind the wheel who is driving it. Obviously, he or she has to be in supreme health, so on and so forth. Second is, of course, the machine itself has to be in a very sublime engineering to tackle that heat, pressure requirement and everything. The third is also, which I feel over the years has diffused a little bit, is the strategy part. The real-time decisions taken in the pits by the team managers, the team owners, right? Especially when the fueling rule was on. Oh man, meaning we saw so many accidents in the pits happening, and I feel they actually should bring it back to make it more fun. But I felt at that time that that's how the strategy still played a very, very critical role. Even today it does, but with you had to go with full tank or to the limit capacity of fuel and just the tire strategy. It has kind of lost a little bit of charm in that, right? But what I really like is bringing in parity, right? Meaning I knew Ferrari once had the maximum bucks, they could do any R&D and still couldn't win, for a long time couldn't win. But now I think it's getting better and better that people are at a common platform, are able to fight together with the creativity part coming in with the budget cap and everything else. So I think maybe the last year was an exciting turn for us, and starting this year, because there are so many regulations changed this year, we should expect even more the next 2-3 years of massive changes coming in. So I think that's the great journey it has been.
More than, as you say, the technical regulations have actually brought in stability, as you said, common grounds with the help of the budget cap. What's more important is what is behind the scenes of behind the teams. Now, what I meant is, like, for example, Mercedes goes with Petronas as their fuel supplier. You have Ferrari going with Shell. Now, although Petronas and Shell are not actually in the competition, they have to develop the world-class fuel.
Yes.
That not only helps Formula One, it has also helped aviation, it has helped the road cars. They have brought in innovation because of Formula One. So a lot of credit be given to Formula One where it is due. It's not given, but that is what it is. For example, this year we have brought that 10%, I think so, should be a biofuel.
Yes,
now,
yes.
That is an important step, because how the petroleum companies tackle it, although your machinery might be great, you have the best engine in the world, you have the best team servicing it, you have the best pit stop and the best driver. But if your fuel isn't that reliable enough, your machine will suffer and your competition will suffer. Yeah. So not only I was talking about the entire regulations, but the teams behind the regulations also need to be that focused in order to win.
I agree with Vignesh. People forget that Formula One is a team game. Seriously, how much goes behind the car and the person sitting behind the wheel. I have to always explain it to people who are not into Formula One. It's not just about that person sitting and driving a car. So many decisions are made, so much research goes in, all cutting edge technology, and then it comes to the race itself. This is all before the race, and then the race itself, a lot of decisions, like Prashanth mentioned, strategy and everything. So it's such a team game, and driver is one.
I think driver is just one element of it.
Yeah.
That is why you have the Constructors Championship also.
Yeah.
If it was the drivers game, just leave the Driver Championship go out.
Yeah.
No, but I think the individual preference should remain, because when people will say, okay, the engine is same or vehicle is the same, but who drove it better? People always say, right? I think that sorry Vignesh, but that confusion was a little bit brought into the picture when Hamilton had COVID last year. And Russell was brought in, and people were always saying that, hey, if you have the best car, even a lowly placed driver can win or can come up. And I think that was proven to a certain extent. While he didn't finish up in points, Russell, because of, I think, an engine failure or something, but he was in a top 3 podium position at that point of time. So yes, could he have finished one? That could be the differential between a Hamilton and a Russell. But the engine.
But then Russell is also very, very talented. Like,
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I think
but
he's the
just to-
future for.
Just to contradict that, I would just tell that okay, Russell was racing against Bottas, who was in Mercedes for a long
He was, and he
and
was
yet when
leading.
he's able to outperform him,
Correct.
somewhere with equal machinery also he is proving himself to be a better player.
Exactly. And I think that's what Swetha was saying, right? I feel once Hamilton retires, Russell is going to be the face of Mercedes, and I think he's coming up from the younger days of Mercedes has helped him a lot. And the guy is talented. I think this year will really test his mettle. That with a much superior car he has, will he come into that podium positions more and more and challenge others?
Fine.
I mean, speaking of the other philosophy there, right? Not sure how many of you followed A1. So there's a nice backstory to this, right? So Bahrain won the opportunity to do F1 back in 2004.
Yes.
And that was a big boost for them because in the Middle East, where Dubai was considered the destination from an external outside the Middle East perspective, you suddenly have a small island country scooping up F1. So Dubai came up with something called A1. The idea was they got everyone to use the same car, the same machine. And they were like, their idea was as a test of the drivers because everyone has the same car. And what they did was they made it country based instead of companies running a team based.
Okay.
There were 10 countries, 2 cars each, including India and Pakistan, which they had for a couple of years, clearly didn't create as much excitement and they closed shop. So I think that resolves the debate to an extent in terms of why F1 is a lot more exciting is because like all of you highlighted, there are 1,000 variables involved, which can make it go in any direction. And that's what gets us all excited. And at a very high level, I think Prashanth, you covered it pretty well in terms of it's a battle between the person, the machine, and the strategy and all those combinations, which makes it a lot more exciting. Speaking of which, since 2022 has a lot of technical regulation changes that have come about. And one exciting one, which Vignesh touched upon, is the fact that from a biofuel standpoint, we're going with E10, which makes it an intermediate step towards a greener F1, which has always been a concern for a lot of people. And as you guys rightly highlighted, a lot of this does push the envelope, which gives an impact in all the other industries. We might not end up seeing F1 cars on regular Indian roads, but the technology that goes behind this is being used across a lot of industries. So I did want to check with all of you if you had any opinions on the new technical challenge regulations that are up for this year, and any of them that caught your attention that you want to share.
I think I'm very excited about the cars. It's going to be a closer race because of how the aerodynamics have changed with the design of the wing and the air shaft now. So the cars can follow, I think, very close, almost even I think 20 meters, 10 meters. It doesn't have to push back so much. Now, whenever someone's following, it's always like, okay, hold back, stand back, save on your tires and, watch out. But I'm hoping that it's going to be closer races, more overtakes, and even, cars that are in the midfield can come and challenge the cars ahead. That is something that I'm really looking forward to.
Definitely. I think the biggest part there was the dirty air not hitting the previous car, right? Because of the aerodynamics. So I think I saw some of the simulations. Yeah, the downforce. The simulations I saw from F1 website showed that you will be a lot more closer. That means that you can overtake provided you have all the other aspects in place. That's definitely one. I think, as one of the pictures highlighted, the wheels have a much bigger. They're 18 inches right now, probably. After a long time, we are seeing such bigger wheel rims. But that will also mean that the consumption will have to be very different of fuel. And the power is also going to be very different. With the bigger wheelbase, they have to change their strategy about their chassis, their base, the engine horsepower, everything. So it will be exciting to see, which is not a big deal, but they will have to adapt to this newer change. And because of that, the vehicle looks very, very different, right? 16 inches to 18. It looks a much bigger car, but actually it is not. If you see the length, breadth, the height, it's actually not, but it looks bigger too visually, actually.
I would like to see the tires, because only the F2 teams have a complete knowledge of the tires, which also means that, okay, affiliate teams like Mercedes have an affiliate with F2, Red Bull have, Ferrari have, their academic drivers know a bit about the tires, they can help the team with it. But these tires are completely new. We have done what, like 26 days of testing with these tires?
Yeah.
Nothing else. Now, this is a very new factor. Remember that when Pirelli was brought in completely, this tire factor mattered a lot, because earlier the teams were given a choice of selection from Pirelli, Bridgestone, I believe, and then Pirelli came in, and the teams having Bridgestone tires, they were like faced.
Correct.
They knew what to do. Similarly, although you have tested it, these might be, because you don't know. See, you have tested it in a simulation environment. That is, you don't push that hard as in race. You don't push your competitors. You don't know how the depth might be. And probably, who knows, we might have a repeat of Silverstone where Hamilton was in 3 wheels. But those subtle things in those regulations, since it's not a part of the regulation, the tire is completely new. It might affect the race substantially.
I mean, that's the thing with, I guess, all regulations or any change, right? The change brings about that factor of unknown, and that's what also makes it a lot more exciting. But again, the tires obviously help, in theory, make races a lot more competitive. And as Swetha highlighted, with the whole focus on the downforce, means cars can get in a lot more closer. We'll hopefully be seeing a lot more action in terms of overtaking, because people can have that much more room to try and maneuver around the other teams. As Prashanth mentioned, this is what is a baseline car. The pictures that you see is what F1 as a Formula One has specified as their baseline car, with over almost 7,000
designs,
simulations that they've done, right? I think I was reading up that it's almost half a petabyte of data that they've collected through these simulations. And using these baseline is what all the other car manufacturers are technically looking at this as their baseline, the gray area with the regulations, using their interpretation there. And that's where we're going to see what the final cars look like when they actually hit the circuit.
In fact, so one of the team principal had said that, okay, we could see a lot more variations in the cars than what was expected from F1.
Yeah.
So that shows that how teams have gone substantially, dug deep, exploited the gray areas to come up with the whole new different concepts, making it so variably complex.
Very true. Very true. Yeah.
Cool. With that, we will move on to our next question. I think Vignesh, you cracked this one again, so I'm going to give you 10 points.
Okay, this is all about the circuits, and with 23 races this season, it's going to be the longest season ever. I hope that's what we mean by that, correct?
You're on the right track, but I just highlight that there are 3 specific circuits that I've picked up. This is pretty much an exhaustive list.
Basically, I'll say that, okay, that the top one is actually a Red Bull circuit. If I'm not wrong, it's in Austria.
That's the Austrian Red Bull ring.
Austrian ring. The down one in
Brazil, that's Interlagos. I think they've changed, right? They changed the timings of it. I think it's.
I understood. I think so. Red Bull circuit, Ferrari is Imola, and Mercedes is the Interlagos. They are strongest in these circuits.
Wow.
No, it's not. I mean, I wasn't looking for that correlation, but it is Imola, it is Interlagos, it is the Austrian Grand Prix or the Red Bull circuit there.
I got it. Sprint race.
Correct.
Okay. Nice, nice. Yeah.
We spoke about technical regulations. We've been talking about the teams changing. One thing that's also changed with the format is what was sprint qualifying last year is going to be continued as sprint. These are the 3 tracks that have been picked for the sprint. What are your take on, the concept of sprint racing? Like, what did you guys feel from last year?
Last year I felt sprint race wasn't that much important with the drivers, considering only 3 drivers got the points. The rest drivers didn't even try. This time they have 8 points, which means you will see more competition into it. Also, the point that they ensured that the Fridays, the person who wins the Friday would be given the pole position, changes the dynamic because in the sprint race, if you win that, if that is considered as a pole, so that wasn't going well with the fan format. Was watching qualifying as a pole position all throughout its life. So these small changes would do the trick, I believe.
Correct, correct. Adding to that, I think Q3 coming back is practice. P3 is making a little bit of difference because people will get more time to practice, and all the practices are now parked on Friday, which is great. There is no spillover to Saturday. Vignesh's point is perfectly right. I feel now there is going to be a lot more rat race of getting those points and standing on the Sunday, race day to be ahead. While there was a bit of competition, but I think if you are in 4th, 5th, people were not worried too much, right? Because they're anyway not getting points. But with 8, and especially to middle teams, that single point, 2 points are going to matter a lot. Like a Renault versus or an Alpine versus a Ferrari or a McLaren, 2 points for certain races are going to matter a lot. So now people will put a lot more seriousness to it. From a spectator perspective, I was pretty happy. It was definitely like a mini race, a sprint, and because it was setting a trend to the race day, it did have some prominence, right? It did have some prominence, and now with the point system being better, it will carry that momentum forward. The top guns will definitely be there, but now that's what I meant by the lower teams and the middle teams will also see that as a potential to be from a low to middle and middle to higher up. That's bringing some parity to it or advantage.
So I mean, I don't mind 2 races on a weekend, which is what the sprint does. But I feel I end up feeling bad if there are accidents that happen, especially during the sprint race starts, where a good qualifier can never get to start a race at the right place. So that is always it bothers me. And there are some people who are very good with race starts. I mean, though I don't think in these sprints Kimi did show, but I have always noticed how Kimi makes up so many places in a race start, no matter what kind of car he is. A lot of people like that, a lot of drivers like that. So that I feel they definitely have an advantage in sprint, but then an accident in a sprint race breaks my heart. Like I will not be able to take it.
Yeah, it happened to Leclerc last season, right?
Yeah.
What I also thinks is that, see, as an organization, F1 as an organization, if you have tried something, you see a positive result, you increase the number of sprint races. You don't see a positive result, you take it out. I just understand, why are you again keeping the 3 sprint race again? Like 1 year of data wasn't enough. You wanted another year to compensate it. That actually hits me because if they felt it was working good, the number of sprint race should have increased a lot more.
Vignesh, I have a different viewpoint.
If it was not working, that was some rumors from the FIA telling that they are going to completely scrap the sprint race. So they should have done either. Keeping it is good considering you have made some changes, but I don't think it's going to appease the fan more than what it did last year.
But let's hear Prashanth's alternate.
I was saying that I don't know, meaning I've not read it in any blogs or anything, but I feel last year, at the beginning of the season, they did not announce the sprint races, all 3 together. They announced it in certain phases because the pandemic was still wide open across the globe. So they were waiting and watching because of some cancellations. I personally feel the 3 is just a curtain raiser. It's just a teaser. And I think at somewhere during the summer break, where there is a 3-week shutdown, right, they will announce for further races or in between with ample heads up. And I feel this will turn out into at least a 5 sprint is what I personally feel, though I've not read it in any blogs. And the only reason is because they're also waiting and watching on the pandemic. Like Singapore has renewed pretty recently, but they've not hosted it for last nearly 2-3 years, right, because of the pandemic. So they want to do it, but I think they want to just take care of the external factors at the moment is what I personally feel.
Yeah, no, even I agree to the extent that last year it was like a pre-teaser.
Correct.
Right? They tried it out. They saw some positives. They saw some negatives too. And they saw that there was not much skin in the game.
Yeah.
Which is why they've tweaked it and said that let's get 8 finishes. And this is really important in F1 context because everyone is so focused on the first top 2 teams fighting it out. But we've sort of missed out on the fact that the middle is where it's got really exciting over the last few years.
Yes, very true.
Right. And this really gives all of them skin into that game because now it's worth the sprint race from that perspective. And I think to Swetha's point, it sort of balances out between drivers who are great at qualifying and drivers who can get into the race spirit. And the sprint sort of splits that out into 2 different opportunities. And it is like a mini race from one perspective because the strategy completely changes again. Because the number of laps you're doing is much lower than what you do on a race day. So now you're actually seeing 2 different strategies playing out on a racing weekend.
Yeah. But you don't have to pick.
Yeah. No, unless something goes wrong.
Yeah.
Safety car
risk, high
coming
reward.
in and you want to...
And I mean, that's the definition of F1, right? But yeah, I think a lot of interesting changes there. Obviously, one which we highlighted in terms of 8 places getting points, to the part that the winner of the qualifying gets the pole position irrespective of who wins the sprint.
Yeah.
And that still makes sure that that balance that Swetha was talking about plays out.
You know, one thing as a fan, I would tell that for me, F1 has grown complex in terms of understanding the point system. Earlier, for me, if it was top, a person finishing first, he was getting 25, then 18, 15, so on and so forth. Then they introduced something called as the fastest lap point, if he is in the top 10. Now we are introducing sprint race point. As a new fan, I believe it becomes more complex to understand, okay, which points match and how the championship is calculated. As an old fan, since we have already understood the previous format and we are able to understand what is sprint and how it works fine. But if F1 has to cater to new audience, they need to somewhere see how the point system can be simplified.
But I guess my counterpoint there would be how valuable is the point system for a new fan when there is a lot more excitement playing out with respect to all these variables playing in, and that's what a fan is looking for. Yes, the point system helps you understand what happened at the end of it to say that, okay, if Verstappen is leading or Hamilton is leading, so you know that who's the big player there. But at the end of it, do you really, if you're not getting a sense of the points earlier on, are you really put off by the sport from that perspective? Because then if you take other sports like cricket, for a non-cricket fan, like we've seen enough jokes and memes out there because it is very complex to understand when you're just starting off. Even though it seems like just 2 guys running around between 2 sets of sticks and a few people running after the ball, if you get into the rules and how runs are scored, how you can get out, adds a lot more complexity, which you get as you get more into the sport. So I would say, honestly, I think by splitting up the points, it actually makes it, puts more skin in the game for the middle level, which makes it a lot more exciting overall as a sport. So I feel this is in the right step forward.
I think the journalists calling it as F1 1.5, which I think people pay a lot more attention to till last year. Till last year is where people really understood that, okay, Max can give that challenge. 2 years ago also he did, but he lost it in the second half of the season while he was still ahead. So the 1.5 has become a lot more exciting to the middle teams, and somebody like Ferrari who came after like 3 years, they reap the benefits, right? They're beating the McLaren. So this season, I think Aston Martin getting slightly better, and we should definitely see Alpine, which got even a podium finish last year, a couple of them. So we should see even Ferrari actually fighting it. It won't be easy for them, right? Definitely the other guys and all the middle pack are going to be there, and we can't neglect sorry, my favorite driver from Thailand, what's his name, who went to Williams,
Alex Albon.
Alex Albon, when it's such a cheeky player, right? See, he bringing the talent to Williams is suddenly gonna even pump up Williams for a different level, with the car parity getting better and better. So you never know, they can actually surprise anybody, right?
In fact, Williams last year was like the third last team.
Yes.
So they have broken that standpoint with the new ownership. So it's good to watch in that way.
Very true.
With that, this one, Prashanth, I'm going to give you the 10 points.
Thank you
for cracking this question, and we will move on to the next one.
Hey, VAR. This is VAR. I can say F1 is introducing a football style VAR.
Is it there?
This is the F1 investigation. Michael Masi goes on.
Masi's.
Two guys come, and it's pretty simple.
So, I mean, VAR is obvious, especially for soccer fans.
Yeah.
Actually, VAR is not so obvious for anyone. That's why it's still so controversial.
True.
But yeah, these are the two people who would be replacing Mike Masi as the new race directors. They're going to divide the workload, alternate between each other, because I think that was one of the feedback that came through was there was just too much on one person. And hence they're going to split it up into two people. Obviously, there are a couple of other things coming in terms of the direct conversation that teams used to have with Mike Masi. They want to streamline that process, maybe have a team that responds, and that information then goes over to both Niels or Eduardo. As in during the race, it's just going to be one of them as race director. So if it's Niels in race 1, then it's Eduardo in race 2, and so on and so forth. But the team would sort of, pile on that information to them. So I think the key concept here was the Abu Dhabi meeting just happened. It was Mohammed bin Sulayem's first grand kickoff, right? And he had to make a statement. And the biggest statement was from what happened in Abu Dhabi with the entire controversy around the race director's office. So a lot of changes have come about in that. And what are your guys' take on that? Swetha, you want to start off?
I would like to start off with saying that we have watched the Netflix series Chernobyl. You will see that Chernobyl was not because of a single incident. It was a series of incidents which took place through a disaster. Same happened with Formula One. If you see, Charlie Whiting died, because of which Michael Masi was promoted. Charlie Whiting knew, he was in the thick of the game, he knew everything. Suddenly, Michael Masi was pumped up with everything. In fact, during Charlie Whiting's time, there was a proposal to introduce new officers in order to support Charlie. But since Charlie was capable enough, he was able to do it, but not all might be. They weren't able to replace that film slot for around 2 years. Then you have a serious contest between Lewis and Max, wherein some crucial decisions were taken wrong, be it the stewards or be it the race directors. But the pressure piled on them. And with such pressures, an explosion is supposed to take place. A mistake is supposed to take place. That's what Chernobyl taught us. That's what FIA is teaching us. But what I really liked about FIA is there was a popular belief among the F1 community stating that FIA are like the mafias. They will never agree that it is their mistake. If they have penalized someone for a wrong reason, they will still prove it in an FIA court, because all the proceedings have to be taken to an FIA government court. They will prove it what they did was right. For the first time, In about a decade, FIA comes and says that, okay, there were mistakes which were taken place. We are trying to rectify. What does it show? It shows a positive governance. It shows a positive change. It shows that F1 as a whole is committed to improving the sport, the reputation of the sport, and making a sports image in a cleaner way and showing it as one of the best sport of motor sport in the world.
That is a passionate appeal.
Yeah.
I think in the last 2-3 years, when was it? When the way it was broadcasted was changed, right? When you could hear all the teams slowly, you could hear the driver's radio. Then you could hear how the teams were appealing to the race director and all that. It kind of brought the whole thing into light as to how much is going on and how much pressure there is on one person to make a decision in such a split second, which is kind of baffling. And then on top of that, because it's being broadcasted now, the way people appeal also has changed. So that has also added another dimension to F1 itself. Do I like it? Do I like so much drama? I don't like it, actually. I don't know. I felt as an audience, I was happier before, before all this was broadcasted on. But it has brought to light how much is being asked of one decision in such a small period of time. So I'm totally I'm game for two people doing the same job. So I think I think it's better. But has that made everything better with the FIA? I don't think so. I don't know if they'll change so much in just a span of a year now because of all that has happened. But yeah, let's see. That's what I think.
I see FIA as very close to ICC when Srinivasan was the ICC head. It's like my way or the highway kind of stuff. So this is probably a welcome change in that scenario. Well, of course, Srinivasan also did a lot of exciting changes to the game. They were revolutionized, but just as a talking point, we don't want Formula One to do a 4 different type of sport like cricket, the 4 formats type. Unfortunately, we already have that. If you think about it, we already have a 3-day event and 3 sets. I think the point system is also heading towards it, right? Making it a little bit more complex. So maybe in the coming few years, FIA should administer that. But I also see that they've done an excellent job in the F2 and F3, right? They've structured it very well. Like, for example, me as an F1 fan for nearly 20 years, I didn't pay much attention to F2, F3 because I didn't even know they existed. Only when I started to go to races and started to see that, on Saturday it happens, I followed a little bit, but now they're giving a bit of more prominence because that's with the talent pool is shifting up and down, like a tier system. You become a F2 champion, you have a good chance to become an F1 driver kind of stuff. I think those have all been done. But when it comes to the individual races, it's like a match referee, right? And match referees are typically like sitting in like a court scenario. So what happened. Definitely a welcome change. And maybe Vivek, to your point, if they do have a central governing body that the race director is not confused or administered with so many queries at the real time from the teams, putting through a tier system should work. And if that works, decisions will be followed as per the rule book, right? I don't say it's right or wrong, but whatever the rule says should have been followed at that time. So.
No, and I think as Swetha rightly highlighted, right? With the whole thing being telecast and dramatized as such, that also adds additional pressure when you are already trying to interpret a rule book where there are gaps, which there are, and which, by the way, we still haven't heard about. So even by replacing it with 2 different human beings, it still leads to their interpretation. And when there's interpretation involved, especially in F1, there has to be one winner and there has to be one loser. So there's always going to be a loser for whichever way you take that interpretation. So I think there's still a lot of areas of improvement, but rightly said, I think just putting all that pressure on one person would have been unfair. Charles was able to do that. Not necessarily every individual can. And hence setting this structure just allows FIA to be able to run F1 as a sport successfully to the degree possible. Obviously, the other thing, Swetha, good for you is they're going to stop the radio broadcast again from going public.
Yay.
Right, so less drama there.
I would
for
want to
us
watch
to know
more of
about.
the race.
Drama might still happen.
Behind the
Yeah.
curtains for sure.
Yeah.
But the same was actually taking place. I believe that okay, when Ferrari had once used the team orders, FIA had actually did a complete ban on team orders.
Yes.
And that's when you got these multi-21, multi-12 scenarios and stuff. And then they brought in again that team orders can be given. So what happens is that we need not have a blanket ban, but at the same time, as a spectator, there is a limit to how much I should know.
Mhm.
I need not know every conversation between Lewis Hamilton and Bonner. It's not necessary in the context of the race. These extra messages were creating fierce rivalry. I do agree the fans were sided, but they were also adding drama which was not necessary. And since FIA is putting that in, I am one of the happiest person considering the team principals and the race directors can now have a calm mind to deal with the situation rather than worry about the public perception and public reaction.
I think Netflix loved it though. Because
I know. I think it became a marketing stuff, right? I think a lot of the non-Formula One fans who had no head and tail about the sport are now suddenly calling them as pundits because they watched 3 seasons of Drive to Survive, right?
Yeah.
While it has its own good merits, but it's also showing a lot of insights. Like even for somebody like me, what happened behind the curtains, I get to hear, I get to know, and I can relate that, oh yeah, I watched this race, this happened kind of stuff.
It's not unbiased insight though.
Yeah, it is not.
Netflix,
And I think the other point which I wanted to highlight was why, again, whether Masi did it purposefully or not, I think there was a heavy pressure on FIA and F1 to bring its spectator back. They were losing their spectator base because of various factors. It's just not a Mercedes domination, right? Very unfair to say. Of course, a team doing great will always be pinpointed at that. So there was a huge pressure created in course of 3-4 years, and when they saw that there was a very close rivalry, the audience went up, the demand went up, they wanted to just create probably a russack, right? So it led down finally to the interpretation of the law, but people call it as a marketing gimmick and say this was twisted. I don't think somebody like a Masi who's a professional will ever do that, right? But the outcome is always twisted in that fashion. But I think these steps should at least control it. I personally, as a fan, I'm not happy that the radio messages are going away. Right, I still want to see them, but meaning it was more of a broadcasting piece rather than strategy. Because if I'm, say, a Wolf and I'm talking to Hamilton, why would I worry if a 1 million population is listening to me or not? Because only pockets of messages are being broadcasted. And the broadcaster and the media team of, say, Mercedes or Ferrari will align what message to be publicized, right? So Toto wouldn't say, hey, change the strategy thinking of 1 million audience. No, he's looking at the race. So that element is different. But, if that goes away, then I feel that, a little bit of the inside story maybe gone off. Then I had to follow more of Twitter to see what's happening.
I don't mean that. It's the way people used to appeal to the race director.
Okay.
And the way they used to pressure, oh, come on, oh, do this, oh, do that, what are you doing? Those kind of things. I think it's just to add on to pressure for him to add on for him to make a decision quicker
But as a fan, since the radio messages have gone away, I would love the Amazon statistics to go away. The catching distance has never been a catching. So,
yeah.
Formula One can take cognizance of that and remove that. I would be more happy.
What is it? Amazon or TCS? I thought TCS was doing
AWS. It is AWS.
AWS. Okay.
AWS, yeah.
Yeah, meaning I've never seen it to be anywhere successful. They say 8 laps you'll catch up, and it's never happened that way.
They're just proving AI still needs
some statistic. One more statistic.
But yeah, with that, obviously a lot of exciting things we've discussed across the board in terms of, changes to technical rules, changes to the office of the race director, The cars themselves have changed. So 2022 is going to be an exciting new year. We said 2021 was exciting till the very end, right? That sets the baseline for what 2022 could be. And before we wrap up today's episode, I did want to go around uh, across all our panelists to see what are they excited about 2022, and specifically if you can highlight who you think or who you want should be the winner, the Drivers' Championship winner and the Constructor Championship winner. Let's start off with Swetha.
Okay, so I'm thinking that because the engine is not changing so much. Okay, they are getting an engine revamp. Engine's not changing so much, so I don't. Here I'm talking in terms of not knowing the pace of the cars at all, but I think Russell and Hamilton will actually fight for the podium a lot more on Mercedes' best days. I think you can have either Russell on the top spot and Hamilton. So I feel they will kind of keep battling with each other, but still be putting podium positions. So I think the constructor will still remain with Mercedes, and but who's going to be a driver's champion? Well, because these two are going to be battling it out, they might not get all the top they might not be on the top step a lot. So I think whoever is right behind Mercedes. So I don't know if Red Bull put it all in 2021. Does it have anything more to push for 2022? I'm not sure. I'm not sure of Red Bull's pace. But if Red Bull is the team that is second or very close to Mercedes, then I think it's Max, but it hardly happens. He's won already. I don't know how his temperament is going to be, how his drive is going to be, for another year of it, because he's already got his world championship. But I have a feeling the Ferrari is going to be really good. I don't know why, but I think it's going to be good. But if that is going to be the second team behind Mercedes, then my bet is on Charles Leclerc. So let's see. I don't know if it's between Max or Charles, but the constructor is going to Mercedes. So that's what I think.
In December, we are going to watch this episode again.
Okay, let's just put it as my wishful thinking, because I think he's very talented.
We're not going to hold you to this. Don't worry.
Yeah.
But interesting insights. Next, Prashanth, let's go with you.
Sure. I personally wish, while I know that Ferrari did a lot of development work in 21, but they put a lot of their development work scheduled for 22. That was something which they had already highlighted, that for next couple of years, their car development will take a hit, focusing on the newer changes, which are supposed to happen last year. Because of pandemic, it was pushed out. So I think this is the year where I want a three-way fight to happen, where Ferrari comes into the top three or the trio fight. I don't expect Red Bull to make a lot of drastic changes to the car, with the engine being the same. Their aerodynamics will of course matter a lot. I feel this is the season where I want the trio competition to happen. Will they be successful? I think time will tell Ferrari, but I feel, just like Swetha said, very optimistic about Ferraris, and I'm banking my bet on Sainz. I love the driver. He's a cool as a cucumber driver. I love his consistency when he's driving very well. So I'm banking, meaning while I still like Leclerc a lot, but I'm more inclined towards Sainz to be gaining those more points and podiums. Coming to the biggest question between a Hamilton and a Verstappen, it will be still a super fight. But we'll have to wait and watch as to how Mercedes would have made those changes for 22 with the car regulation. So I feel they may have a slight edge over Red Bull, also keeping in the fact that they want to hold that grudge and get back the driver championship back to Hamilton. So that should be there. But yeah, my wish list should be the trio challenge to happen this year.
Two flags sort of tipping towards Ferrari. Yeah. And let's go to our resident expert, who is a Mercedes fan, but not necessarily a Hammy fanboy.
So last time when actually Hamilton lost out was 2016. He lost out to a driver and Mercedes won the constructor. So if you see the same situation, I would love Mercedes again gaining the constructor, because after that they did it for 3 years consecutively and more than that. But yeah. Apart from that, I believe that okay, since if I'm comparing 2016 with 2021, you see that okay, Hamilton was in a deficit of 5 points in 2016, but more than 7, 8 points in 2021. If you remove the fastest laps of both the drivers, it comes to 5 points. So if history tends to repeat itself, I would go with Hamilton. But being a great F1 fan, I would love Science to compete for the championship. He has been an excellent driver. I have seen him since his days at Toro Rosso, then coming to getting a chance, coming to McLaren, coming to Ferrari. He has grown a lot, and Science needs to win. I do agree. People feel that okay, Leclerc is the god now in Ferrari, but Science has shown that he too, on his great days, can show anyone and everyone that okay, he has done the best. So in that way, I would tend towards Hamilton and Science for the drivers' championship, whereas I would tend towards Mercedes for the constructors.
I mean, my personal take would be that last year, obviously, we had Team 1 for Constructors' Championship, which was way ahead. Team 2 slightly behind them, and then a huge gap, and then we had the others playing in. With the restructuring of the points and how this is going to play out, and the fact that the top two teams were very focused on giving their all out for 2021, and the other teams focused on 2022. The other change that we didn't discuss about was the wind tunnel time, defined by the factor of the top teams getting lesser time so that the mid teams get to play out. I think this year's season is going to play out purely on the basis of which team has both its drivers successfully, consistently completing the race. So while Hamilton can go on and win a lot of podiums, if Russell can't keep up, Mercedes may lose out on the Constructors' Championship. And it's the same thing for all the teams. So whichever team is able to get both its drivers to consistently finish off in the top is probably going to win the Constructors' Championship. As for drivers, I think you're potentially just going to see a repeat of last year with respect to Hammy and Max fighting it out towards the end. Purely because while all these changes are coming through, I feel just that their driving acumen, the experience that they have as world champions, and the fact that all the cars will be much closer, but it doesn't change the fact that there's still a pecking order. I think that's what we're going to end up seeing in terms of the final drivers' championship. If I had to make a call that you can hold a gun to against me, I would probably go with Red Bull this year again, and probably say that Max will probably win it, hopefully fair and square. But with that, I think we are close to ending our episode for today. It's been a long drawn conversation. I don't know how time flies, but it always does when you get a bunch of F1 fans together who are extremely passionate about the sport. So I would like to thank each one of you, Swetha, Prashanth, Vignesh, for coming on the show, sharing your thoughts on the F1 journey that each one of you have gone through, and sharing those experiences with our lovely audience that is watching this show right now. Audience, if you've loved it, put down your thoughts in the comments, share, like, subscribe the channel that we have, the Toast Network, this particular stream that we have of Toast the Talk. And obviously, if you have topics that you want us to pick up on, do drop it on in the comments and we'll add it to our programming team so that we come up with a great program that is tuned towards you. Our next show is going to be in March. March 20th is the season opener in Bahrain. We'll figure out if we'll be coming in with a pre-show to line you up to know what's lined up in Bahrain. I'm sure all of us are super excited about that. So thanks once again and stay safe, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.